This is VSiN at the Track, the road to the Kentucky Derby. Now here's your hosts, Mike Somich and Aaron Halterman.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into VSiN at the Track, road to the Kentucky Derby. I'm Mike Somich. He's Aaron Halterman. And boy, Aaron, do we have a loaded show today. We've got to talk about 3 prep races from last week. We're going to look forward to the Lexington Stakes on Saturday over at Keeneland. We've got a couple grade ones in the Apple Blossom and the Jenny Wiley we're going to talk about as well. And we've already got news flowing here. 2 defections this morning from the Kentucky Derby field. We got to talk about who's in, who's out, and who we're hoping makes the gate, Aaron, for that first Saturday in May.
Yeah, it's a loaded show. We've had loaded shows to start it off. This may be the best one yet, though, because that Derby picture is getting very clear as far as the field. You're right, though. We still have some question marks. We still have a couple horses we'll talk about later in the show. Are they really going to run? Are they not? And what's the implications of more defections? And how far do we have to get to the horse we all really want to see in the gate? So that's a little hint for what's coming up. Going to be a big-time show. We got a lot to do today. Very, very excited.
Yeah, before we jump into the top 5s, which I guess I cheated on a little bit, I have one horse who's not in the field, but I'm really hoping makes it. I think you do as well. So we'll talk about that here shortly. But let's talk about the preps we saw last week first. We'll start out at Aqueduct in the Wood Memorial. We saw Rodriguez ship from California and head out to Aqueduct, get to face a new set of horses. And he looked great, breaking from the inside, being able to get right to the lead and hold off Grande, who was running at him late, but didn't really get the right trip to be able to get to him. What did you make of Rodriguez? And is he a horse that you legitimately think can win the Derby coming out of that effort?
Yes, I absolutely do. I really loved this effort. He reminded me a lot of his sire, Authentic, who won the Derby in gate-to-wire fashion. That's what this Wood Memorial looked like to me. He got to the front. They didn't mess with him this time. They just put him on the lead, and they said, go, and let's see if they can catch you. And they couldn't. He took on a challenger of Captain Cook around the turn. He tossed him aside, no problem. And you kind of mentioned it. Grande didn't get the greatest trip in the world. I don't think he was catching Rodriguez this day at all, though. I just think Rodriguez got off to the lead, got comfortable, and was really, really tough in the spot. And I don't think he even took a deep breath in this race, to be completely honest, Somich. You kind of look at this horse, and you're like, he could have went around again, and I think he would have been fine. For whatever reason, they didn't let him do this in the last 2 races he was in. In his maiden special weight win 3-back, they let him go to the lead, and you saw a really nice performance where he crushed a horse named Baeza, who was second in the Santa Anita Derby. The next 2 races, they tried to, rate him off the speed, not let him go, and it was a disaster. So he got back to the tactics he wants, and he looked, just tremendous, in my opinion.
Well, he needed to get away from his stablemates, right? Because he wasn't considered that top-tier Derby candidate, so he was never allowed to get the lead when he was facing Barnes, when he was facing Citizen Bull. We see him as the only Baffert in a race. All of a sudden, he's able to go to the front. My biggest concern with him is he a need-the-lead type? Does he have to get the lead in the Kentucky Derby to be able to win the race? I think yes. And the pace, because of that, is going to be very interesting when we get to that first Saturday in May. Let's move along here. Let's look at Keeneland now. They had their biggest stakes race of the season, their 100-point race. Burnham Square, a Florida horse, ends up getting the win there. We saw Owen Almighty run second, who will very much matter for the Derby because he's one of those pace horses. What did you make of the race down there at Keeneland? Is that one that you think in the Bluegrass you're going to see a legitimate Derby contender come out of?
Yeah, look, I think no is the answer to that question. I did not like this race all that much. It was East Avenue who got out to the front and was trying to hold on, and he was getting very tired down the lane, and it looked like a lot of tired horses down the lane. And Burnham Square kind of just took advantage, but it took him a long time to get past those horses. So they came home pretty slow in that race. The final 16th was not very fast whatsoever. Don't love a lot of these horses as far as the Kentucky Derby goes. I don't think a lot of them wanted to even go on 1 1/8, let alone 1 1/4, which will they'll go next. Burnham Square, I do think, is one of the horses that will go 1 1/4 and be okay. I just don't think he's got the elite talent that it takes to win a race like the Derby. He's going to need a pace collapse. Maybe he'll get that, but even so, I prefer closers a little bit more than Burnham Square. So overall, not impressed with this race.
Yeah, a Burnham Square and underneath horse to me. Maybe you put him 3rd, 4th in the trifecta and the superfecta. Maybe he will run up into it. I don't love his chances to be able to win the race. I do think that East Avenue making the gate makes a big difference here from a pace perspective. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we look at the current top 20. Now, Let's flip over to Santa Anita Park. And this one, to me, was the most interesting of the 3 preps, even though we had just a field of 5 horses headed postward. We've got some video of the race, so let's take a look here at the stretch run and Journalism and Baeza banging heads before we talk through the actual race.
They're at the top of the stretch in the Santa Anita Derby, and here's Baeza. Baeza forges past Citizen Bull, and Journalism is kicking into high gear. Journalism and Baeza in a Santa Anita Derby showdown. It is Journalism just in front of Baeza. Write this down. Journalism is the best in the West as he wins the Santa Anita Derby. Baeza punched his ticket to Louisville. It was a long way back to Westwood and Citizen Bull.
Journalism is the best in the West. I don't think that can be disputed at this point. And we didn't even get what I thought was the most impressive part of this race, Aaron. If you go on the backstretch and you look at some of the overhead footage, Barnes was messing with Journalism this entire race, trying to make it hard for him to be able to get out and chase down Citizen Bull, who was in the up front early in that spot. I thought this was impressive for Barnes to be able to handle really the teamwork that you saw from the Baffert runners to try and slow him down in this race, yet still able to get out, find his footing, and roll to the wire there and beat what we both think is a pretty good horse in Baeza.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was worried about, okay, what kind of education are we going to get out of this race with just 5 horses and really just 4 when you take Journalism out of it? He's facing only 4 horses. But I was super impressed because Barnes was put in this race solely to mess with Journalism by Bob Baffert. It was very clear Bob Baffert sent Citizen Bull, his other horse, to the lead and said, okay, Barnes, you just mess with Journalism, try to knock him off stride and try to keep him from running his best race, and then we'll steal it on the front end. Now, funny enough, Citizen Bull finished 4th in this race, so it didn't matter anyway. Even if he messed with Journalism, he wasn't going to win, which I find hilarious because Barnes did no running at all in the stretch either. He goes 5th. But the point being, they forced Journalism to race inside. He ate a ton of dirt in this race. You look at pictures of him, or you just look at the video we just played. He is covered from head to toe in dirt. That was a really good sign that he was still able to run like he did, eating all that dirt. And then basically he was getting body checked up the backstretch and just stayed calm. And when it was time, he just pushed Barnes aside and went and got Baeza. And because of what all that happened, Baeza got a big-time jump on him. He got about 3 lengths in front of him, and Journalism was still able to run him down. So could not have been more impressed. This was easily the most impressive prep of the 3. Journalism passed all the boxes, plus a few more that I didn't think we might see from him. We actually did get to see, hey, he can overcome some adversity and still be okay.
And you're going to run into adversity in the Derby as well. So a big notch in his belt to be able to go out there and face that adversity and still be able to run down very good horses in front of him. It made me more confident in Journalism heading into the Derby. We'll talk a little bit about the odds in the final segment of the show and whether or not it may be time to bet Journalism before we get to that first Saturday in May and what his possible off price is going to be. But before we get into that, if you're ready to get into the action, if you're looking to bet any of these races, head over to firstbet.com. They've got you covered. Sign up to access exclusive promotions and bet on hundreds of horse races every single day on your phone or your computer, including live video of those races, so you can just watch them right there after you bet them. Visit firstbet.com, the number 1stbet.com, and use the promo code VSiN200. You'll get a $200 bonus there paid out in rebates. So every time you bet, win or lose, you're going to get some money back. Don't miss out. Start betting today over at firstbet.com. Love them. They're one of the big sponsors of the show. It's where I place all of my wagers as well. And Aaron, we're live here on YouTube at VSiN Live. We get to talk about our top 5s here, and we've got some differences in our top 5s. I'll let you go first here. Who do you have as your top 5 Kentucky Derby contenders right now?
Yeah, a little bit of a change, no doubt about it here from last week. So I'm going to put Tistastic at number 5. He was the winner of the Louisiana Derby. That was way back in the third weekend in March. So people have kind of forgotten about him. But look out for Tistastic. He's getting better. He improved greatly when stretching out in distance. I put number 4 as Sovereignty. If you watched last week, I was pretty disappointed in him, but I was pretty disappointed in a lot of horses this week as well. So Sovereignty gets back on the list. And I do think if East Avenue runs, that will help Sovereignty. Number 3 is Rodriguez. Super impressed. I love this Bob Baffert runner. he can win in a similar style as the last 3 Bob Baffert Kentucky Derby winners. We're talking about Medina Spirit, who crossed the wire first. He was a winner for gamblers. You're talking about Authentic, and you're talking about Justify. Rodriguez can run that similar style. Sandman, number 2 for me. And then Journalism, we just bragged about him. He's number 1.
Yeah, been a long time since any non-Bob Baffert horse has been able to go gate to wire. It'll be interesting to see if Rodriguez decides to get the lead from Citizen Bull in this spot, and if so, if he's able to move forward and take them from gate to wire there in the Kentucky Derby. My top 5, again, I think I cheated a little bit here because I do have Baeza on the list here at number 5. He's 27th in points right now, but he's top 5 in my heart. If he makes the gate, it's a horse that I am definitely going to play because of how much I respect this California group that we're seeing moving forward heading into the Derby here. Number 4 for me, I'll take the horse that ran second to Rodriguez and Grande, Todd Pletcher trainee, a horse we talked about in the very first episode of this show and how much we thought this horse could progress. That was only Grande's 3rd start. I thought he got a brutal trip, being wide the majority of the race and having to catch kickback, and then was able to still get close to Rodriguez in that final furlong. Tappan Street here from the number 3 for me, your Florida Derby winner. The Burnham Square winning, I think, makes that Florida circuit look even better. I still like Sovereignty at number 2. I was more forgiving than you of that Florida Derby. And number 1 for me, your current betting favorite at Journalism, who's on the board at plus 350 or plus 400, depending on you look at it. Real quick, Aaron, would you take 4-1 right now on Journalism?
I would take 4-1 on Journalism right now because I think he's going to be 5-2 to 3-1 on Kentucky Derby Day. Therefore, 4-1 makes sense. You got a little bit of built-in price because of injuries that could happen, but yes, I would take Journalism at 4-1 right now.
All right, everybody, stick with us. We will be right back here. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk the Lexington Stakes, the final Kentucky Derby prep / the first Preakness prep of the season. Thanks for joining us here. VSiN at the track, road to Kentucky Derby. What's going on, chat? Welcome back. Another VSiN at the track here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Ron Esterman, first time jumping in. Appreciate it. Loving some Grande. I agree with Ron there. Shadi, good to see you out there in the chat as well. Curtis Manlow, how's it going? Aaron, where would Baeza be in your top 5? If you did, I thought I could use him, even though he is on the outside looking in right now. If you felt the same way, because you made your top 5 without thinking you could use Baeza, does he crack the top 5 for you?
Yeah, he's number 4 for me. I like him quite a bit. He would be number 4 for me. We'll talk about it in a second on the show, but he's actually up to number 25 now after some of the breaking news that happened as we were going on the air. So he's getting closer. I still don't think he's going to get in. But yeah, he would be up there number 4. I like this horse quite a bit. But again, how realistic is it that he's going to get in? I just don't see it.
Curtis Manlow in the chat says, long-time listener, first-time commenter. Not true. I've seen him over on the Racing Dudes YouTube page over there. He's got Journalism at 51-1 to win the Derby. How does Journalism lose the Derby? What issues do you think you could see from him that makes you concerned about Journalism's chances, outside of missing the break in the draw, since those are every single horse's issue?
Yeah, traffic could still happen to him. Maybe he's sitting mid-pack and he gets bungled up between horses. Yes, he got an education last out, but there'll be more horses around him, so that could be a problem. What if the last race took a little bit out of him too, Samich? I think that's very possible. He ran hard in that race. So what if he shows up and it kind of just is not as absolute A effort? I mean, he's not just a monster, is what I would say.
You're tuned in to VSiN at the Track, the road to the Kentucky Derby, right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome back in here, VSiN at the Track, Road to the Kentucky Derby. I'm Mike Somich. He is Aaron Halterman. Thank you to everybody joining us over on YouTube at VSiN Live. We're live there every single Friday, 11:15 Pacific, 2:15 Eastern for our VSiN at the Track show. Re-airs again on SiriusXM channel 158 and on VSiN proper every Saturday morning, so you can catch us there if you ever miss a show. And Aaron, we're already at the point here where we're talking about our final Kentucky Derby prep, but I thought you mentioned this yesterday. We talked about this race over on Racing Dudes YouTube. This is really a Preakness prep, right? That's how we should be looking at this?
Yeah, absolutely. So none of these horses have enough points to where even if they win this race, they're going to get into the Kentucky Derby. So this race is only worth 20 points, a little bit less than what we've seen the last 3 weekends. So it's absolutely a Preakness prep more than it is a Kentucky Derby prep, but that's okay. You know, we've seen some decent horses come out of here in the past. Some of them, like, they felt like they were going to be really good, and maybe they had injuries and stuff that happened as well. So a little bit of bad luck for this race as well. But it's a very good Preakness prep, and you've got some very good trainers that are good at pointing to the Preakness and pulling off a little bit of upset. So there's still a lot of intrigue, even though this is, like I said, it's officially a Kentucky Derby prep race, but it's not really a Kentucky Derby prep race.
All right, now before we jump into the field and start handicapping this one, a couple of housekeeping notes inside the Lexington. We've got 2 horses, the 4 Rolando and the number 9 horse Touchy, who are both going to scratch out of this race. They both ran last weekend at Keeneland, so I'd be very surprised if we see them in back-to-back weekends. Our favorite here, the number 7 horse Prater for Chad Brown. Flavian Pratt gets aboard, and we've seen speed be phenomenal at Keeneland throughout the start of this spring meet there. One of the 2 horses that I do think has a good shot at getting the lead here is the number 7 Prater for Chad Brown. Do you think Prater gets the lead, and who are you putting on top here?
I do think Prater's going to get the lead in this race, and it kind of, stealing the thunder there. I do think he's going to be awfully tough to beat if he does get that lead. So when you look at Prater, the horse I am going to put on top in this spot, you look 2 races back, he beat Sovereignty, a horse we both have in our top 5s. Now, look, I will point out very quickly, that race was at a mile where Prater beat Sovereignty. That's not exactly where Sovereignty runs his best. So, yes, it was a win. I still think it was a quality win, but it wasn't, hey, we beat him at a mile and a 16th or a mile and an 8th. But still, good win there. Prater had a little bit of issues getting back to the track for his 3-year-old season. He finally returned last time out at Gulfstream Park, just destroyed an allowance field, never left first gear either. He just kind of jogged around there and won by 7 lengths. So I think, in a perfect world, Chad Brown would have this horse 2 or 3 races under his belt this year, and he'd be pointing for the Kentucky Derby. But hey, we got to point to the Preakness with this horse. Even if he runs second, I think he'll go to the Preakness. And we've seen Chad Brown show up with horses who skip the Derby and then go to Pimlico for the Preakness and run very well. So I like Prater today, on Saturday for the Lexington. I could also like him in the Preakness as well, but that's a bridge we'll cross a little bit later.
Yeah, Chad Brown been phenomenal in the Preakness, especially with these style of horses that are a little bit faster. We've got Better Boss in the chat over at YouTube asking, are there any advantages for horses at this mile and a 16th distance? And we mentioned how good speed has been at Keeneland. Mile and a 16th at Keeneland is structured a little bit differently than some other tracks. So they start a little bit closer or further back from the turn, but because of that, it's a first finish line finish, which means that you do not have very much stretch to close ground. You also, if you're going to make a move, are going to have to go wide on that second turn. All of that does play towards speed. And Aaron, our other speed horse here is the number 7, Gosker, 7-2 on the morning line. Brendan Walsh ships in, and Irad Ortiz picks up the mount. I'm hoping for a speed duel between these 2. We'll talk about my top pick in a second. Do you think there's a chance Gosker and Prater go head-to-head here, and we do see them bump heads into the first turn, kind of open up in that 23 and change, 46 and change first half? Or do you expect one to kind of let the other go and just take that stalking trip?
Yeah, it's going to be a rider's race, right? You've got Irad on Gosher, you've got Flavian Pratt on Prater, 2 of the best jockeys in the country, if not the 2 best jockeys in the country. I do think there's only 2 real speed horses in this race, and it is the 6 and the 7. Anytime I see that kind of situation, I do think, well, one little thing goes wrong and then the other one's in front by himself, and then it could be dangerous. So, like, say Prater doesn't break very well, all of a sudden the 6 looks a lot better when we get to that first turn, and he may be a length or 2 in front. So anytime there's only 2 speed horses, I get worried that there probably won't be a pace duel, but that doesn't always turn out to be true. We saw in the Arkansas Derby, there were only 2 speed horses in the race, and guess what? There was the biggest pace duel that we've had in the whole Kentucky Derby season, right? So, and I mean, that's a good thing to kick it back to you. You think there's going to be a pace duel. Let's hear it. Who's the horse you like?
Yeah, look, and when there's 2 horses that want the lead, you are right. You get a little concerned that, one stumble at the break, one rider decided to take back. All of a sudden, you lose your opportunity for that pace duel. You want 3 or 4 horses if you're really projecting a hot pace up front. I do think you're going to see the 2 of them bang heads, but I like the 3 Bullard quite a bit in this spot because I don't think he needs to be that far behind. So even if one goes and the other sits at the flank, I think Bullard able to pocket up there from that 3-hole and able to get a fairly good trip, not too far behind those leaders and able to make that move into the far turn. And for me, I've said this at the top. I've said this a couple weeks in a row. I think this California crop is just better than everybody else right now. To me, it's California, a gap to Florida, and then a gap to everybody else. We saw Rodriguez go and absolutely dominate in the Wood. Bullard, a Mike McCarthy trainee who had been running in California and had been going 1 turn, which I don't necessarily think is the best distance for him. This is a horse that wants 2 turns, wants the extra distance. Last time out, lost to Barnes and Romanesque, but Romanesque was playing blocker for Barnes. They were both Bafferts. I don't think Bullard really had a chance in that race. And this is the trainer of journalism as well. Mike McCarthy decides to not enter in the Santa Anita Derby and instead go out here, run in this race, run away from journalism, and then possibly prep this horse up for the Preakness. I know you love the idea of this horse going 2 turns. So do I. You've got tactical speed, and I think Bullard absolutely trips out. By the way, the price at 9-2, which I think probably goes down a little. I think we're looking more at 7-2, is also the most attractive of the 3 to me, Aaron.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. I've got Bullard in second. I'm going to use that horse in every kind of wager I can. The other thing I'll point out about Bullard, and the price is right. You're absolutely correct on that. But this is a horse, Michael McCarthy, like you said, he trains journalism. He's been trying to get Bullard in Kentucky Derby prep races for a couple months now, and he just keeps having little setbacks, not big problems at all, just little things that keep him out of races. He tried to take him to Oaklawn Park and run in the Rebel or even the Arkansas Derby. He was under consideration. He just couldn't quite get him to a race. Now we're here. So it tells me 2 things. One, he was trying hard to get this horse to the Derby, and that tells me, hey, you've got the Derby favorite, but you still got this one. He's probably a pretty good horse if you're still trying to get him to the Derby, even though you've got the favorite in your barn. And number 2, he took his time. He didn't force him, and he's entered here. And if he runs, and all indications, obviously, he's going to run, he's doing really well, right? They've got whatever was wrong with him kind of under control. He's feeling well. He's doing well. So it's a really good sign. For me, the biggest thing is we haven't seen him in almost 3 months. And so that I kind of like, does this race kind of maybe knock the rust off a little bit? And then the next start, we see him at his best. I think that's possible, but this horse will be ready to run. McCarthy's a very good trainer. So I love the pick, and I think it's very much going to set up. The 7 and 6 are going to round the corner with the lead, and then it's going to be, can Bullard come catch him?
Yeah, look, Gosker and Prater both have 1 race under their belt leading into this race. Bullard off the bench. That is a big concern for me as well. And we do have 2 Kenny McPeek horses in here, and it feels like he always wins one of these prep races out of nowhere. He hasn't done it yet this season, so that would mean this is the spot. I don't like either of them. I liked Hypnus in the Louisiana Derby. He got the absolutely perfect setup. You got the speed duel out front. And he didn't run a lick. Tistastic ends up winning that race, coming from off the pace, basically getting the same trip as Hypnus, but Hypnus not able to really make a dent there. Kenny McPeek also has the 5-horse native runner. Any interest in either of these horses? I've officially quit Hypnus. I can't. I'm over it. I'm out. Do you like either of these McPeeks?
I think Hypnus makes a little bit of sense in this race, and I totally agree. My advantage with Hypnus is I didn't play him in the Louisiana Derby, so I don't have a reason to be mad at him, right? But I understand why you would. He broke his maiden, and then McPeak threw him into the deep end of the pool and ran a very tough races, the Rebel Stakes and the Louisiana Derby. This is not a very tough race, right? I mean, it's a good race, but it's not up to the level of the last two he's been in. So I think this is the first time since his debut race where Hypnus has been entered in a race that makes a lot of sense for him. So I like that about him. Sometimes these Kenny McPeak horses, you kind of need that form to get a little muddled, and then that's when they jump up and beat you when you give up on them, Samich. So I wouldn't be shocked if Hypnus does it. I like Bullard better, though. I think if you're playing a closer, Bullard is kind of option A. Hypnus would be option B.
Yeah, we mentioned this mile and a 16th distance here at Keeneland does play towards speed. Hypnus going to be toward the back of the pack. To me, that's a big strike against Hypnus here. Maybe he able to come up underneath, run third, run fourth in this spot. But I think this is a tall ask still. Like, if you're not going to run, if he runs back to the Louisiana Derby, it's going to be hard for him to be able to track the top two here in the Lexington Stakes. So number 7, Prater for Aaron, 2-1 on the morning line. Number 3, Bullard for me, 9-2 on the morning line here in our final Kentucky Derby prep, the Lexington Stakes. When we come back here, we've got 2 major races we want to talk about here. You've got the Jenny Wiley at Keeneland, as well as the Apple Blossom, including the return of Torpedo Anna at Oaklawn this weekend. We'll cover those 2 when we get back here. VSiN at the track, road to the Kentucky Derby. Ron brings up an interesting point. No Brian Hernandez Jr. on either of these McPeak horses. He's the go-to rider for Kenny McPeak. So when you see Hernandez, generally that's a positive. When he's missing, kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit. Now, Jose Ortiz did ride Native Runner last time out at Fairgrounds to a win in a restricted allowance. Hypnus had Hernandez Jr. the last 3 rides. One of the reasons I liked him in Louisiana Derby was that he had Brian Hernandez Jr. on him. Yeah. Do you take anything? Do you take anything into account here with the fact that we don't have Brian Hernandez Jr., who doesn't ride at Keeneland all that often?
Well, Brian Hernandez Jr. is riding a horse named Torpedo Anna at Oaklawn. So no, I'm not really worried that he's not at Keeneland riding Hypnus, this freaking mule. So I don't have a problem with it at this moment.
Wow, shots fired at Hypnus. Honestly, I'm the one who should be salty at Hypnus after picking him in the Louisiana Derby and him just deciding not to close an inch of ground, even though he got like the best setup ever in that spot.
I was looking for him, but I had a periscope, so I found him at the last. But I think listen, he's ran immature in his last 2 races, and I really believe it's just these fields were tough, right? I think he might get a little bit out of those and move forward here.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't like if it wasn't a mile and 16th, I'd be a little more interested in Hypnus, but it's a tough setup for Hypnus to be able to close.
Yeah.
You're tuned in to VSiN at the Track, the road to the Kentucky Derby, right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome back in here, VSiN at the Track, road to the Kentucky Derby. I'm Mike Samich. He's Aaron Halterman. Look, one of the perks about not having as many prep races here, Aaron, we're going to have plenty of news to talk about as we get closer to the Kentucky Derby, but that also means we're going to get to talk about some of the grade run races that are going on around the country each week. Both of us love the Kentucky Derby Trail and love talking about the Kentucky Derby and leading up to it, but we both play the races every single day and handicap these, and we've got some really interesting stakes races kicking off here with the Jenny Wiley Stakes from Keeneland. This is actually the race right after the Lexington, so if you're looking to play a daily double, you can play the winner in the last with the winner in this race, be able to try and really balloon up your winnings here. Jenny Wiley, we're going on the turf. This is one of the really hallmark races of this Keeneland meet early in the spring. We've got a very interesting field here. We've got a couple U.S. contingents, and one thing we've seen on these turf races over the last couple of years are more and more Europeans are shipping in. We've got 2 true European shippers for their trainers coming in here, but we also have a Chad Brown European shipper, so a private purchase by Resolute Racing. Chad Brown takes over training of Excellent Truth, the number one horse, who is your favorite on the morning line. Do you like Excellent Truth on top, or are you going somewhere else here?
I really like Excellent Truth in this spot. So we've seen Chad Brown do this so many times with fillies coming over from overseas, running on the turf, and having big careers once they get over here for Chad Brown. And you just kind of look at what you see with Excellent Truth, what she's done overseas. Now, the first thing you got to know, if you don't really bet turf racing or you don't follow racing outside of the Kentucky Derby, turf racing in Europe is usually better than what you're getting over here in the United States. You can really count on that. The fields are deeper. The horses are a little more talented on the turf. Now, the dirt, we dominate that, but the turf, they do very well. So this horse was running in high caliber races and running very well. Second last time out in a Group 1 race over in France, and ran so well. And if you just kind of look at that race, and if she can reproduce that race here in the United States, I think she's going to be very tough to beat. Now, the conditions are different here. They run straight over overseas. We have turns here in the United States. Some horses, they don't handle it all that well. But with Chad Brown on her side and training this horse and getting her ready for this race, I have a really good feeling the number one Excellent Truth is going to run well here. So she's who I like on top.
Yeah, you mentioned the different format of the track. So a lot of the mile races overseas, you do have just a mile straight run where you're not having to worry about turns. Funny, I asked a jockey at a Breeders' Cup once, does it matter that much? He goes, it depends on the horse. But if they get the opportunity to practice, usually not a big issue. And to me, that's a big part of why I like Excellent Truth in this spot. This horse last ran July 28th, 2024. So it's been almost a full year since we last saw her. But she's been in the Chad Brown barn for a while. I think that makes a big difference. That means that Chad Brown has had her and been training her. Those are both positives. We've seen multiple turf workouts on the form. Those have been pretty good for Chad Brown as well. I do think the one Excellent Truth going to be awfully tough in here. Now, let's talk about the other Europeans before we jump into the U.S. horses in the field here. The number 2 horse coming over from Europe, as well as the number 6 horse, Jabara. Any interest in either the 2 or 6 in this spot, Aaron?
I do like the number 2 Choisha in second. This is a horse that had been over at Meydan, won a couple of Group 2 races there and looked very good. So the form is really good heading into this race. You look at some of the other European races this horse has been in. She's another one. She's kind of like Excellent Truth. She always kind of shows up and you see good efforts against pretty tough fields. You mentioned it though, kind of the difference here is Excellent Truth has been with Chad Brown for a while, been training here, kind of been getting used to things. Choisha really hasn't. She's just coming straight over and, from Meydan and going to have to kind of get used to the surroundings here. Now, Meydan is a little bit, the same, or, similar, I should say, as the United States as far as the race course, but there's still differences. There's still, we have a little bit tighter of a turned track. I mean, the turf course is a little firmer here than it is over there. So there's still differences that she'll have to get used to. That's kind of the question mark, but I do like Choisha quite a bit. I think she's got a lot of class.
Now, did you notice I made a choice not to say her name there because I had no clue how to pronounce it? So I let you do it. I'm also making a choice not to play the 2 horse in this spot. I like the 6 Jabara if I'm taking another European horse. You mentioned the 2 coming over from Meydan. Those races, if it's not on huge days and for millions of dollars of purses, the field's generally not nearly as good as what you get from the group company in Europe. Jabara, if you look at this horse, this is a 4-year-old. She's going to be making her second start of the year here. And she came out and ran a career top number in that first start as a 4-year-old. And we saw her do the same thing from the 2 to 3-year-old season, runs a career best effort, and then improves off it in her second race as a 3-year-old. I think Jabara has a chance to improve off it here. But if I was going to take anyone to upset the 1 horse, I actually think it's a U.S. horse here. We mentioned how good Speed's been on the dirt at Keeneland. Speed also been phenomenal over this turf course. And Kehoe Beach, I think, is projected to be loose on the lead. So the 7 at 7-2 has a shot at taking this field gate to wire, Aaron. And I think that is really how you beat Excellent Truth, is being able to get out in front and not getting caught versus trying to outclose the 1 horse.
Well, and you mentioned it that the dirt course there at Keeneland is playing to speed, right? Well, the turf course is as well, not to like the level of the dirt course, but it's still playing to speed pretty well. So I'm with you. And look, we've seen this horse 4 straight races go right to the front. She won 3 of them, got beat on the 1-4 back. So we've seen her do it before. We've seen Leslie Ward win 1 million races here at Keeneland. I don't mind that horse at all either. We've got a lot of agreement so far, which is rare for us, right? But I agree with how you see this race as well. I think the 7's got a big shot.
So from a betting perspective, are you as simple as give me a $50 win ticket on the 1, or are you going to try and hit the exotics markets here and trying to juice the payouts up a little bit?
It's going to depend on the price. I'm going to play a daily double if the number one Excellent Truth gets bet down too hard, because I do like the 8 horse in the next race. So I'm going to play a daily double, probably 1-2 with the 8 in the next race, race 11. Unless that price holds at around 5-2, maybe even 3-1, then I might just get simple and play a win rager. But I want to kind of structure it to where I'm getting some value on Excellent Truth. Just kind of have to read the odds. That's what you got to do in horse racing with a market that's always changing. So we'll kind of see there. May play the double, may play the win. It'll just depend on the odds.
Yeah, I'm going to be playing a double from the Lexington Stakes into this one. So I'm going to play a Bullard, the 3 horse in the 9th race, into the 1 horse Excellent Truth here in the 10th. I'm also going to take some shots with the trifecta. So you're able to put more than 1 horse in each of the specific positions in a trifecta. I'm going to put the 1 and the 7 in first place, and then play 1, 6, 7 in second, 1, 6, 7 in third. And then I'm going to play more on the 1 over 6, 7, over 6, 7, really try and key on those 3 horses and see if we can create some value. Now, what is probably not as interesting of a betting race specifically on top is the Apple Blossom, which is going on over at Oaklawn Park on Saturday. Grade 1 event here, one of their marquee races of the season, and really the return of Torpedo Anna here, who horse of the year last year. Will she take on the boys in the Classic this year? She is one of those just superstars that we have in our sport. I'm just going to assume we both think she romps here. So the question is, how do you make money in this race, Aaron? I'm picking Torpedo Anna. I assume you are as well. If you're not, let us know. But what do you do underneath Torpedo Anna to try and create value versus a 2-5 win bet?
Yeah, we were talking about this race the other day, and I thought you made a good point. It just feels like a straight trifecta or even a straight exacta if you don't want to get that risky. You can't get around Torpedo Anna. The only way she's losing this race is if she shows up and she's just not at her best, and it's really hard to determine when that's going to happen, especially when she should run better than she did last time out when she romped over this track. So I'm putting Torpedo Anna on top. I'm going to try to beat the 5, Where's My Ring, who's 5-2 in this race on the morning line. I'm going to try to get that horse out of second, and I'm going to use the number 3, Free Like a Girl, and the number 7, Wild About Hillary. I'm going to use those horses in second and third, I should say, in a trifecta. So I'm going to play number 6, Torpedo Anna on top in a try, and I'm using 3-7, 3-7 in that second and third spot, and trying to get around the number 5, Where's My Ring, to juice up the trifecta just a little bit. You got to get a little bit creative. If you like Torpedo Anna on top and you want to play her, it's okay. You just kind of got to get a little bit creative as far as who's going to get in second and third, and that's kind of the way I'm going to approach it.
Yeah, I'm really trying to find, I agree with you. First off, the 5 horse, Where's My Ring, very, very good filly. I don't want to knock her at all, but she's had these efforts where she jumps up and then she cannot sustain that jump. We saw her best career race last time out, but that was against N1X Allowance Company, so big time step up in class here. I agree with you, especially at the 5-2 price. She's the horse you throw out to try and create value here. I really wanted to use the 2 horse, Neon Beach, but all the races that put Neon Beach in second or third are on turf. And so it's hard to then say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and use her on dirt here underneath. So that makes it hard for me to get behind the 2. I think the 1 is at least a little bit interesting, but I've got distance issues, and I'm not sure what you're going to see from a trip perspective. And so I landed on the same 2 horses you did. I think that you go and you play the 6 horse Torpedo Anna on top, and I like specifically the 3 horse Free Like a Girl in second. I'm going to play a pretty big trifecta, 6, 3, 7, and just hope we can cross 1, 2, 3 and look to get somewhere around 15 to 20 to 1 out of a 2-5 shot on top.
I think it's smart. Look, the 3, Free Like a Girl, ran very well last time out. And I'm not going to say made it a race, but she was right there with Torpedo Anna for a while until the class kind of hit her in the face, so to speak. And the 7, Wild Out Hillary, won the Bayacoa, which is a local prep race for this one. So they both make sense to me. I like the strategy. Obviously, we like the same horses, so I like the strategy as well. And hopefully we get lucky here. And look, it's going to be fun to watch Torpedo Anna no matter what happens.
I promise we do disagree, and we will do some of that here in the final segment as we talk about Rodriguez and some of the other Kentucky Derby contenders, as well as the news with 2 horses dropping out of the field today. Stick with us here, VSiN at the Track, road to the Kentucky Derby. All right, we have to disagree in the last segment, Aaron. We've been agreeing way too much. By the way, in the chat here, question, how do horses ship overseas. Really interesting video from FedEx. If you want to go, I think it's on FedEx YouTube page. If you search FedEx shipping horses, it actually shows you some of the airplanes that they ship horses overseas. You'll often see 20, 30 of them in this massive plane. So FedEx, a big time horse shipper too. Not a lot of people know that one, Aaron.
It's insane because you think about horses and how high tempered they are. And then you add racehorses in there who are nuts. I don't know how they get them on these planes and keep them calm as they go across. They also get on planes and fly across the country as well, not just the world. But yeah, look, it does usually when you go overseas, it'll take a little bit out of them once you come back. They need extra rest. So that's a factor. But yeah, they're like us. And in a way, they just hop on a plane and away they go. It's crazy.
Yeah, Shotty mentions it in the chat. They call it Air Horse One. Nice little play on words there that FedEx calls their shipping planes. You'll also see them ship just via trailers a lot around the U.S. So if you have horses going, let's say, from Aqueduct to Saratoga or from Belmont to Saratoga or from Gulfstream to Tampa Bay Downs, those shorter distances, you'll often see them on trucks. But the longer ones, they go with the planes. I thought you brought up a good point as well. It takes a while for these horses to be able to be back to 100% after they ship, especially to Maidan, especially overseas. It's one of the reasons we haven't seen a lot of those Middle East horses do well when coming over to the Kentucky Derby.
No, absolutely. And it just like us, there's jet lag involved, right? I know I get jet lag just flying out to Vegas, so I can't imagine overseas.
You're tuned in to VSiN at the Track, the road to the Kentucky Derby, right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Welcome back here, VSiN at the Track, live over on @VSiN Live on our YouTube page. You can catch a re-air on SiriusXM channel 158 and on VSiN proper on Saturday mornings in case you miss anything. The replay also available over at the YouTube page for VSiN. Aaron Halterman, we're going to close out this show talking about the Kentucky Derby, right? Why not? We got the top 30 contenders here, 32 really. We have 2 defections today. So let's start out with the news, and then we're going to roll through these top 30 and talk a little bit more in depth about each of these horses and whether or not we think it's worth a bet right now. So first off, Aaron, give us the news here we got this morning from Churchill Downs.
Yeah, big news here from Churchill Downs. Heart of Honor and Almighty both are now officially out. So both those horses are now out, and that means Flying Mohawk and Grande, who were 21 and 22, they are now in the Kentucky Derby field. And that also means Baeza, a horse we both like, is now up from 27 to 25. Now, obviously, there's going to be more defections in this thing, so I would expect to see a couple other horses get in. But that is big news. 2 horses we thought probably weren't going to run in it anyway, but it's nice to officially know now that they are out.
Yeah, it's nice to cross them off the list. And for number 22, Grande makes a big difference. You're not an AE in the race and also eligible horse, which means if there is a scratch, you're in the 20 post. You don't actually get into the main draw of the field. And the Kentucky Derby draw, one of the most important aspects of this race, as well as pace. All right, let's take a look here at the top 10 in our Kentucky Derby leaderboard. Right now, Burnham Square, a horse neither of us have on the top 5, is your leader with 130 points. You've got Sandman sitting there on your list, I believe in second, and he's second on this list at 129 as well. I want to talk a little bit about Sandman because right now he's sitting at 10-1 in the future markets. And Griffin Johnson, who, if you don't know who he is, don't worry, I didn't either until a couple days ago, is a major TikTok and YouTube star. He's got over 3 million followers on both of them. Do you think if you like Sandman, now is the time to bet him in the futures market versus waiting to the day of the races? Because I think you're going to see money from this group of people that are all casual viewers that are going to bet 2, 5, 10, 20, whatever it is on the Derby and going to bet his horse and really drive the price down.
I did not know any of this until you were telling me yesterday, and now I would have to say yes. If you like Sandman right now, go ahead and do it because it is going to get driven down. I mean, if you have that many people, like I said, even if they're only betting 5 or 10, well, if you're getting hundreds of thousands of people doing it, it's going to make a big difference. The other thing to do, if you want to wait till Derby Day, play him in like daily doubles, exactas, tries, pick threes, things like that, because the common better's not going to hit those markets like they're going to hit the win wager market. So if you're like, I don't like to play futures, I want to wait, daily doubles, like I said, more exotic wagers are what you're going to have to do if this kind of plays out like you think, Samich. And it's a very realistic thing that could happen. And again, I didn't know about it. I didn't know the guy either. I still don't. but like I said, that is a real thing. We see that happen in the Kentucky Derby. So I would keep an eye out for it.
I remember my boy Jack went off at 5-1 because there are a lot of Jacks out there in the world. Literally the reason he got bet was his name. And Griffin Johnson, again, has over 3 million followers on multiple social media sites. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that half his followers bet $2 each, which I actually think is low. That's $3 million into a $40 million pool. That is very much going to affect the odds on this horse to win. I think that your advice was spot on. If you don't want to bet a future, betting him in the daily double in the pick 3 market, I do think is where you're going to get a little more value on this horse, because you're right. You're not going to see a lot of those followers who don't know much about horse racing come in and bet daily doubles. They're going to come in and just bet the horse to win. Now, looking down the rest of this list, we got Journalism sitting at number 3, Rodriguez sitting at number 4. This is another one that I know you want to talk about here, Aaron. So Rodriguez at 4, I think has no shot at winning the Derby. Zero chance. Zero chance. He needs the lead. He's not going to get it. Why do you think Rodriguez is a legitimate shot to win this year?
All right. Yeah, this is where our disagreement is and how we kind of look at this Kentucky Derby picture right now. I, first of all, will agree. He needs the lead. He's going to get the lead. I am very confident in that. You saw in his maiden race, he ran 46.33 for a half mile. If he can kind of do that in the Derby, he's going to be in front. You look at Bob Baffert and you look at how he's won the Kentucky Derby as of late. Authentic, the sire of Rodriguez, he ran 46.41 for a half and took him gate to wire. You look at Medina Spirit, a horse that crossed the wire first. He went 46.70 for a half and took him gate to wire. And then you look at Justify, he sat just off a very fast pace of 45.77 to the half, which means he probably ran about 46 and change and won the race. I think Rodriguez will do exactly that. Now, the deal is, I think this pace is going to be maybe a little slower than you. I look at this and go, I see the other speed horses as East Avenue, serious threat, and then Bob Baffert horses. Bob Baffert's not going to burn out his own horses, so I think the key to the whole race as far as a pace perspective goes is who Bob sends to the front, which I think is going to be Rodriguez, and then what East Avenue does. He's a very unreliable horse. We've seen him stumble out of the gate and not be a factor. We've seen him, they try to send him, and he doesn't quite get the lead. He's the key. If he bothers Rodriguez, it's probably over for both of them, no doubt. If he doesn't, we could see Bob Baffert on the lead running 46 and change, and we've seen that movie before. They've kicked on and they've won the Derby.
Yeah, look, if he draws the 4-post and he's the inside speed and you're right, he gets to go 47, I'll be scared. If all that goes right, you're dead on. I thought we were going to see a slow pace last year in the Derby. It was lightning quick. I'm almost just assuming we're going to see faster paces than we expect with 20 horses at this point. But Bob Baffert is the trainer who's been able to take horses gate to wire. Now, we've got Tistastic and Tappan Street and Sovereignty on this list. We've talked quite a bit about them. So let's roll over here and look at the contenders, number 11 through number 20. And this is where it gets a little more interesting, because I do think we might see a couple more defections off this list as we move forward. Again, Owen Almighty, as well as Heart of Honor, both fall out. Heart of Honor was one of the international qualifiers, so we'll only have 2 international qualifiers in the field this year. And when you look at this list, to me, Citizen Bull sitting there 11 obviously jumps out. Do you think, so you think it's just Rodriguez who goes? You don't think it's Citizen Bull who tries to go and get the lead?
Well, I think it's possible that it is Citizen Bull, but I just think you look at what happened in the last race and you go, he got the lead in the last race and he couldn't finish going 1 1/8 miles. We just had Rodriguez go 1 1/8 miles and finish full of run. It just logically makes sense that you're going to try to send Rodriguez. Now, again, it's Bob Baffert and you never know. We've been okay so far this year at predicting what he's going to do, but he'll surprise you. But yeah, I do think it's Rodriguez that goes to the front, and I think the other Baffert horses will do what, quote unquote, the other Baffert horses have done in all the races, try to be the blockers, right? And just try to distract the kind of the real contenders from catching the horse that he sends to the lead. And again, I'm guessing it's going to be Rodriguez.
Now, you mentioned East Avenue at 13. I think that made a big difference running second there in the Bluegrass. He's going to immediately inject pace into this race. If he does break, which is a problem for every horse in the Derby, so you always have to have that little asterisk there if they break. 2 horses that I have started to hear steam around are the 14 Publisher and the 15 American Promise. Any interest in either of these horses who are currently big numbers on the board?
I have a bit of interest in Publisher because I've heard the same kind of steam. Now, the problem with Publisher, he's a maiden, which means he's never won a race. So that's a little bit of a problem. But look, if what you think is going to happen is they're going to be a pace duel, which there could be for sure if East Avenue is able to do his job, then horses like Publisher make sense because there's going to be a pace collapse, meaning the speed horses are going to start really slowing down, and Publisher, a closer, will be able to come up and pass a lot of tired horses. So Publisher in the third or fourth spots makes a little bit of sense to me. American Promise, I feel like he's going to be forwardly placed, and I just don't know about how good this horse actually is. He won the Virginia Derby, pretty weak race. I don't have a lot of interest in American Promise.
Before we rip over to the 21st through 32nd horses, don't forget we are sponsored over here by Express Bets. If you're betting on sports, why not try races as well? First Bet lets you wager on hundreds of horse races every single day from top tracks across the U.S. Sign up over at firstbet.com, the number one, STBET.com. And use promo code VSiN200 to claim a 20% rebate your first 60 days. Win or lose, every single bet, you get something back. Head over to firstbet.com now. Now let's look at the last contenders here in the Derby, number 21 through 32. 21 and 22 are in now. Grande's in. I'm excited about that. I think 23 is Bob Baffert's best chance to win the Derby in Madcat Road. He doesn't need the lead, and I've been high on him this whole process. He just hasn't put it together. Am I crazy that Madcat Road is the Bob Baffert horse that can win?
Yeah, you're absolutely insane. You've gotten way too much sun over the last couple of weeks. You lied and said you played lacrosse yesterday. I don't believe that, but you were on the cruise or whatever, Costa Rica, wherever this guy is, right? He's got way too much sun. No, listen, Madcat Road's so good that he can't even get the same jockey to ride him twice. He's 5 races and 5 different jockeys. I'm out on Madcat Road. And guess what? I play in a fantasy horse league, and he's on my team, and I still hate Madcat Road for the Derby.
What team has journalism? I can't remember. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Geez.
This team right here, baby. Let's go with journalism. Baeza sitting at number 27, now number 25. Does he get in, yes or no?
I think no, he does not get in, but I really hope he does.
I would be playing Baeza if he gets in. I like I said, he's number 5 on my list. He would be in your top 5, ranked great in the Santa Anita Derby against journalism last time out. That's all the time we've got here for VSiN at the Track, Road to the Kentucky Derby. For Matt Deutsch, for Isaiah Wrinkle, thank you very much for helping produce the show. He's Aaron Halterman. I'm Mike Somich. We'll be back next week, and we'll be live on Kentucky Derby Saturday as well. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel over there and join us every single time we go live with VSiN at the Track. Until next time, good luck with all your bets. What's up, YouTube? So I got to check my text now. We got a pick 6 double carryover at Keeneland that we got to fire into. So a lot going on today here. Well, we're also doing VSiN at the Track. All right. Can I make the argument for Madcat Road now? Because I didn't have enough time to really completely. I think, and this is what I'm saying. I think Rodriguez and Citizen Bull both need the lead. I don't think Rodriguez or Citizen Bull get the lead. Madcat Road doesn't need the lead, and I think is at least going to sit the right trip to be able to win this race. That's why I think, Rodriguez and Citizen Bull each have like a 1%, 2%, 3%, that level to win the race. I think Madcat Road's at least at like 4 or 5% because of the trip that I project him to get. I'm not saying any of them are going to win. I'm just saying he's the most likely Baffert.
See, you were making this point yesterday, and I was like, what's he thinking? And then when it's okay, it's a difference between 3% and 4%. All right. I would concede that could be possible, but look, he's just not very good. I've followed him a lot. I just can't see a fading 4th in the Florida Derby, a fading 2nd in the Rebel. I just can't see it winning the Kentucky Derby. That's where I'm at with him. I hope, but I don't think so.
Now, Carl Ramrod in the chat said the Japanese horse might come over and run a 45 and 2 first half again. I have not dove into these international horses yet. Have you got the opportunity to? Do you think we're just going to see a speedball out there again that's not a U.S. horse?
We shouldn't, based on what they've done. But we've said that before, and it's just been something with the international horses the last 2 or 3. Well, I started with Rich Strike. That was 4 years ago, where they do things that they don't do on their running styles. They come over here and they do it. So no, based on what I see on replays, but I would concede yes, based on what we've seen in the past, that could happen again. But I don't know why they would keep doing it. It doesn't do them any good. So I don't know why they would do it, but we'll see.
Now, one horse that got mentioned a lot in the chat that I think is at least worth mentioning here as well, Chunk of Gold, who ran second to Magnitude and then ran second to Tistastic. Ran well in both efforts, and you saw Magnitude get this massive number when running in that race. And now you've got Tistastic, who is on your top 5 list. Any interest in Chunk of Gold at all?
A bit. He's kind of one of those ones like Publisher that we talked about. You could put Tistastic in the list, even like a Sandman, Sovereignty. They're all going to be closers. They're all going to hope for a pace meltdown. If they get it, we've seen it. Sometimes it's not the most logical closer on paper that wins. Rich Strike, anyone, right? So could he be that, quote unquote, Rich Strike type? He wouldn't be that big of an upset for sure, but that type that's like, wow, I thought there were 3 or 4 better closers, but he got it. Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to depend on trip and luck, but I think he's going to be in with a shot if we get the pace situation that you are confident in. And I'm saying it's kind of 50-50, but if it's hot, Chunk of Gold makes a lot of sense because we've seen him do it. He's come up and hit the board in races where there's been fast paces already. He can't win, or he hasn't won yet, but he's shown that he can close and hit the board.
Yeah, very interesting how many more horses have a shot at winning if this race goes 22:45 than if this race goes 23:46, right? That minor difference really puts the last 5, maybe even the last 10 horses around the far turn into play, whereas they just wouldn't be if you see a slower pace up front. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us here for a little bit. VSiN at the Track Extra Time. I mentioned at the end of the show, want to mention it again here. Kentucky Derby Saturday. Aaron and I will be live right here on VSiN's YouTube page talking about the Kentucky Derby, talking about our bets, all the news that's breaking, the race-to-race bets as well. Make sure that you join us. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notifications so you know when we're going live. Thank you very much for everybody for joining us, and we will see you all next week.